safety position.
2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Athletics Cant Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets. Now here are your hosts, Tim McMaster and Connor Hughes. Listen safely.
Can't wait.
Welcome into another Cant Wait podcast, where if you're tuning in on YouTube, we will have more viewers than the Jets did at MetLife Stadium yesterday, an empty MetLife Stadium. If you're tuning in and you haven't already, please subscribe to us for the podcast and give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening. We're going to get to the empty stadium, a lot of the issues that are facing the Jets right now with less than 2 weeks to go before they kick off the season opener. But before we get to all that, if you're tuning in on YouTube, you're probably wondering why we're starting so late. And it's because it appears that our producer, Marissa Morris, maybe has a podcast within the Athletic Podcast Network that she values above ours. I don't know, Connor. What do you think?
I think that's what it was, because I honestly think that's what this probably was, because not only did we talk about recording earlier today, talking like a 9 o'clock, 9:30 start time. That the kibosh was put on that. Then I think Marissa suggested maybe doing 10:30. Then we get the text message this morning that 10:30 is not going to work because she's got another podcast to do. I'm getting ripped on Twitter by Bo Wolf, our Eagles writer, who's saying I think Marissa has her priorities in line. So I don't know. I think we're getting two time, Tim, because we're the other one right now. We're the other person in this relationship. We're not the priority. We're not the one that's getting the ring. We're the one on the side, man. You and I are the one on the side as Marissa goes and has fun with the birds with friends. That's it.
I love all my podcasts the same. It's like a parent. You love all your kids different but equally.
Yeah, and we're like the one that never gets talked about. We're the one that mom's not going to work bragging about us, Tim. Mom's going to work talking about what they talked about the Eagles, how much the Eagles made her laugh, showing the finger paintings that the Eagles writers did or Eagles podcasters did for her, not us. Not us. We're the ones she pretends. They have to say like, hey, how are Connor and Tim? And then Marissa's like, oh, that's right. I do have two others.
The Jets. Yeah, sure. I think a reckoning is coming.
I
threw it in the text messaging like Anchorman.
I'm on Indeed.
It's gonna be
I put a posting on Indeed for new podcasts.
Connor, if you can find another producer that could fulfill all of your requests.
This is a good point.
Okay. Connor is the one. I'll send him, hey, what do you think about this social clip? Can I have another one? What about this one? Oh, I really like
an hour and a half on it.
It's like 2:00 in the morning and I'm up cutting clips and doing all these things. Connor's like, yeah, it's okay. I'll do that. All right. That's fine.
But soon she'll get to the intro too. Soon she'll be able to make the adjustment.
Get Jamal Adams out of that intro.
I was wondering what kind of a look I was going to get for that one.
Everyone needs to know that the intro is on Connor. He has the track. So if he blames me on Twitter or whatever, that is not my fault. I've been asking him to change it since Jamal Adams was traded.
I'll admit to that one. That was like Jamal got traded. We just finished it. I was like, oh my God, I've written like 5,000 words on this. We just did an hour podcast on it. And then Marissa's like, hey, so we should probably adjust that intro. I was like, oh shit, that's right. We do need to do that.
Yeah. And so the reason that is still in there is not me. So
other than that, though, it's a gorgeous
If he wants to blame me on Twitter or whatever, I'll put up with it. But he knows deep down it's his fault.
I do. Yeah, it's on me. And I deleted the track too. And like the guy who fixed it, we made the track. I used to work in radio, and one of the guys I used to work with, his name's Jay Varga, who is like an imaging guru, like the stuff he's able to create and stuff. So I created like the thing and sent it to him. I was like, hey man, what do you think? Like, could you tighten it up at all? And what he sent back was like the cleanest version of whatever I made in the world. And I was like, holy crap. And so we sent that. That's the one we've been using. It's like I said, the guy's a wizard. And so I reached out to him when all this, I was like, do you happen to have the track? Because I totally deleted the track, not thinking that, 8 months or 10 months from then, Jamal Adams wouldn't be a Jet anymore. So we got to get all that done. But other than that, like today's actually a pretty gorgeous day, man. It kind of feels like September, doesn't it?
Yeah, nice.
The sun's not out, but I guess you could.
I don't need the sun. It's like the weather. It's like the 70-degree weather. You got like
feels like football. It definitely feels.
Yeah,
like
you get like the short. And the big thing is, you guys are like making fun of me for this. Was I texted you guys this morning? I was like, it's like pumpkin spice season finally, and like I am the president, or at least the head of the basic girls males division. Like that is me, because I am all about like all the basic qualities that you make fun of like girls for. I've got them all. Like pumpkin spice season, I am down for that. And I walked into Dunkin' yesterday before the scrimmage, and I saw it's like pumpkin spice coffee's back. And I don't ever get it from Dunkin' because they're not real pumpkin spice coffee. They it's their coffee and then they load it up with that crappy sugar syrup stuff. So you're basically getting like 700 calories of just sugar injected into your veins. And I'm not doing that. But like Starbucks has a good one. Any local coffee shop has like the good, like actual pumpkin spice brew coffee. Man, I am all for that. I am all for that.
Yeah. Speaking of the supporting local, me and my wife still haven't eaten out here in New York City. We're not there yet as far as the pandemic goes, but we've been ordering in a lot. And we did brunch for the first time on Sunday from a local place that's really good. And they had pumpkin French toast. And I somehow didn't do it. I was strong. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to avoid it for now, but that's definitely on the list.
Man. Yeah. After like 8 miles, the crazy thing is too, is like pumpkin spice coffee is all I'm really into. I'm not really into the whole like other pumpkin type flavor thing. Like pumpkin pie is not really my thing. I do like pumpkin muffins, like with the brown sugar on top, that I can screw with. And Brie makes this killer like pumpkin cookie, pumpkin bar thing with like icing on. That is dynamite. But other than that, I'm not like a huge pumpkin guy. By the way, I feel like I'm sitting like a freaking board and I keep moving because somehow I got hurt in my sleep last night, which is a thing I found out can happen when you get older, is you sleep wrong. And now all of a sudden my neck hurts. And it's like, I've popped like 6 Advil today. Not really. I'm going to be fine. Like I took like 3 Advil, the appropriate dosage, to try to like loosen this up, and nothing's working. Like I feel absolutely terrible. I took the dog out to the bathroom and I tried to pick up its crap and I like basically fell over because my neck's broken. And all I did was sleep wrong. Like I didn't realize that was a problem.
It's from hanging out with the Jets too much.
Exactly. In addition to the injury bug biting the Jets roster, it's also bit.
That's true. It freaking got me. I'm gonna pull a hammy. Like when I go get more coffee, I'm gonna pull a hamstring on the way to the freaking. Like seriously though, like how can you get hurt sleeping? Like cavemen used to sleep on rocks, and do you think that like stopped them? Like I literally woke up. I'm like, God damn it, I am in so much pain. What happened? Oh, I slept wrong. Like between that and hangover recovery, those are the 2 things where I realize I'm getting older. That is
I'm pretty sure
I can sleep wrong now and I don't bounce back like I used to.
We got a comment that says Connor sounding like he's 55. Yes.
It's true, dude. I'm serious. I feel like it hurts. It hurts bad.
I'm pretty sure cavemen were always in pain all the time, pretty much their whole lives. So they probably didn't complain about it though. And they definitely didn't have pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah, they didn't. No.
I feel like this is a good time to talk about football. What do we think?
Maybe, yeah. If I can make it through with like this pain, but yeah, I agree.
We should transition into injuries. So we definitely get to that as far as the Jets go. Some of them more serious than Connor at this point. But
all of them more serious than Connor, let's face it. But
I did want to start though with just the vibe and the comments from players about playing in front of an empty stadium, Connor, because basically it's their first chance to see what it's going to be like come the season. And they'll have kind of the crowd noise and the sound effects down a little more than they did on Sunday, but still the players commented, right, that it's just different, man. It's different.
That wouldn't even be like the word that I would use. Like that's what a lot of them said. For me, man, honestly, like this was I don't live in New York. Like I'm in Princeton. Like I've said that. And I don't go into the city all that often. And certainly when the pandemic hit, I wasn't going to go take a trip into Manhattan because there's really nothing to do when everything's closed. So there really hasn't been like the slap in your face pandemic moment for me yet. Like it's been weird seeing everyone in masks, or I should say it's been like the word used, different. Like it's been different seeing everyone in masks. I mean, it's been different not being able to like go into a restaurant. It's been different not going to bars with like friends and stuff and meeting up. But like we've always just changed a little where like we go to my friend's house and we see them there and we'll have drinks there, or we watch games on TV, or we go now to outdoor restaurants, and the gym being closed has been weird, but that's coming back. And then there's like a gym that opened outside. Like there's always been like, it's just been different, and it's kind of been annoying at times, but it's more been different. Covering this practice was easily the first time where it all felt eerie, weird, and just not normal. Like this was the first time since this whole pandemic thing happened where I honestly kind of went into it saying, I don't like this. Like this is weird. This is just totally not right. I mean, I've gotten used to like driving to work now and not hitting any traffic, which is like the one welcome change of pace is there's no traffic anywhere. But anytime you take, I think it's like 16W off the turnpike to get to the stadium. For anyone who's ever been to MetLife, you go around like the little like roundabout, and then you come up to like an Easy Pass toll booth. So it's like coming up to Easy Pass toll booth, depending on if I'm like the last few years with the Jets, after like the first 3 games, you don't hit traffic anyway, but there's always like a little bit of a backup. So like I get to the stadium like 11:30, like about 2 hours before kickoff. And it's like you sit there and like there's always at least like 3 or 4 cars in front of you. And then when the Jets are really bad, you still move right on through. The opener a couple years ago was great after they beat the Lions, was crazy backed up. And I was like, holy crap, I've never seen MetLife Stadium for a Jet game like this. But still, it's always been like a little bit of cars. Nothing. Just no car. Right through the toll booth. You come around that little bend after the toll booth and you go up to where then you have a bunch of stadium workers that are checking parking passes and saying like, okay, you go left, you go right, you go straight, you go left, you're directing. No one making that turn past where those guys are looking into the parking lot. And the only cars that are out there, maybe 50 cars. And it's the stadium workers and because they have some officers there and media cars. You pull up to where that is and you get into the stadium and there's like one little lane that's open that you go through and they check your credential. They scan your temperature, all that stuff. You walk into the stadium, you get into the elevator. You couldn't be the only person in the elevator. So I couldn't ride the elevator with anyone else. So you ride the elevator up alone, you get out, you walk into the press box and it's basically a ghost town in the press box. I mean, there might've been just us local beats there. There's no team personnel. There's no Jets personnel people. There's obviously no kitchen staff in there. And then you look out at the stadium and you like get to your press box seat. I sit down on my press box seat. I look out into the stadium. You see this gorgeous new turf that MetLife has in there. And it's just empty. And like every time I've ever covered a game, and I've been covering games at MetLife Stadium since 2014, every single time you go there, there's always like the players in the stands. And then there's like the diehard fans that are the first ones to get in there that are down, like trying to get autographs, hanging the footballs, hanging your hats down, waving, watching players warm up. There's always people on the sideline too, watching it. Even at the green and white scrimmage last year, there was kind of the same exact thing. We're sitting there and I like get to the press box. I look out and all there are players in the middle of a stand, in the middle of the field with nobody in there. Like when Chris Hogan caught the touchdown, he's jumping around, but there's no one screaming and yelling. The stadium is still pumping in crowd noise and they're playing like the first down Jets sound and the touchdown music when they score touchdowns, but there's no one there. It was easily the first time this entire pandemic where it just felt like this is totally weird, like eerie, creepy ghost town weird, like you're in a horror movie. And it's like, it made no sense. And it was like the first time that really hit me in the face of like what everyone's going through in terms of like, this is going to be a year, man, 2020, that people are we're going to talk about this the rest of our lives. Like we're going to have our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids. If we make it that long and I don't sleep wrong one day, and if that just kills me, instead of a neck injury, I just die in my sleep because, I slept wrong that day. Because I don't know.
That doesn't happen until at least your 40s. So you're all right.
Yeah, I know. So at least I got at least 10 years left. So maybe I'll be able to tell my kids about it by then. But I don't know if I'm making it to great grandkids with this chronic neck issue I now suddenly have because I slept with my head facing left, not right. I don't know. But we're like, this is like what we're going to talk about. Like if I cover the NFL the rest of my life, somebody was saying like, man, what was it like in 2020? Like I can't wait for like some random college kid when I'm 60 to come and be like, oh, you covered the NFL in 2020 with no fans. What was that like? And this will be like the one moment where it's like, this is freaking weird, man. This is so weird. And it resonated clearly with the players when Avery Williamson talked about it. Steve McClendon talked about it. Braxton Berrios talked about it. Everyone talked about how odd this is and how it's just going to have to be something that they get over. Because if you think about it, man, these guys have played in front of people dating back to whenever they decided to start playing football. If that was when they were 60 pounders, like when, at least in my hometown, we did it by weight. So it was the 60-pound group up to if they played in high school, if they played in college, mom and dad were at least in the stands, or mom was in the stands, or dad was in the stands, or someone else's parent. You were always playing in front of somebody. This is the first time in anyone's lives they're going to play in front of nobody. And it's weird, man. It was weird yesterday.
And we've seen, each sport has kind of gone through it one at a time, and baseball has the cardboard cutouts in the stands. The NBA, I think, has done the best job with the bubble and the actual virtual fans that they have around the arena. Hockey players,
I think that's even weirder. I think that's creepy.
I
don't know if I like that, man.
It's at least they're actually people watching the game. They're just who knows where on a computer screen. It seems like hockey players to me have maybe had the biggest problem with it. I've heard different hockey players actually say that they can't really get as fired up for games in the environment up in Canada. But football is going to be definitely a big deal. And it'll be interesting to see how different teams handle it, how different teams react, because you got to find that motivation somewhere if it's not the fans, because you got to be able to bring it on Sunday. So it's certainly going to be interesting. The question is, who's going to be healthy enough to bring it on Sundays for the Jets. So let's get into some of the problems this team's facing right now. I guess we'll start at wide receiver, Connor. We've talked about that before. It's been Mims. Now Perryman joins him as far as the injured guys go. I mean, you have Hogan. Dante Moncrief was signed by this team. That doesn't seem like the answer in any way. So just kind of bring us up to date here. Is there anything else the Jets can do other than just hope and kind of pray that Perryman and Mims get back soon?
They need guys to get healthy. I think that's the most significant takeaway from every practice. And honestly, man, it's pretty surprising to me, the number of guys that are out and missing time and the guys that just haven't returned. Because I remember we talked to Gase like the first day of training camp, like the first time we're really watching a practice. The main thing that everyone really wanted to see was in all seriousness, Denzel Mims. He's the 2nd round pick. He's the wide receiver. He's the guy that the Jets drafted to be Sam Darnold's go-to guy and grow and develop and learn with him. And we show up first day and he's on the side with a mask and no helmet. And it's like, oh, I guess Denzel's not working. And Gase says, oh, it's a hamstring issue. We're going to take it a little slow with him, but it shouldn't be that big of a problem. All of a sudden, Mims has gone through now how many days of training camp we're on? 14, 15, 16 days of training camp, however long we've been doing this thing. The days all merged together at this point. And Mims hasn't had a single practice. The most that this guy has done is what he's doing with Pierre Desir, which is casually jogging around the sideline, not sprints, not straight line sprints, not cutting, jogging around the field. That's also what the Jets starting corner, Pierre Desir, is doing. And Brian Poole is the one guy that I think is very close to working back. In fact, he feels he can play. He had a nasty reaction to dehydration. There was a underlying health issue. The Jets would not get into specifics on what that underlying health issue was, other than it's an underlying health issue that when he had the dehydration, it basically made the dehydration 10 times worse, which is why he's been out for so long. He's working his way back. He will be back. But Pierre Desir is supposed to be another major part of this defense. He, like Mims, has done nothing and is just casually walking around the field. Mims is supposed to be a major part of this offense, was supposed to be casually walking around the field or casually just running around the field. Breshad Perriman, a guy who had a tremendous start to training camp the first week, 2 weeks of camp, tweaks his knee in practice. Suddenly he's not there. We were talking to Gase. Gase said, look, not serious. We might be able to have him back tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, there's no Perryman. Gase goes, we're going to have him back by Saturday. Saturday comes, still no Perryman. There's swelling in his knee that has not gone down. And until that goes down, he can't start running. And until he starts running, he can't start practice. So you're looking at this Jets roster right now, and you look at it just on paper, and you say, okay, that actually looks like something that might be able to compete in the NFL. You suddenly start crossing off the number of players that this team has now lost, especially at the receiver and cornerback position, and they're in trouble. Like, there's a reason why Braxton Berrios is having the camp that he is. It's because he's going up against Javelin Guidry every single day. Javelin Guidry is one snap away from being the Jets' starting cornerback, because right now they have Bless Austin on one side, who looks like a pretty decent player right now, certainly having a very good camp. I don't know if he's a number one, but he's a solid starting corner. Arthur Marlette is not a starting corner in the NFL. Nate Harrison is not a starting corner in the NFL. That's the Jets' two guys. Quincy Wilson hasn't had the camp the Jets expected. There's a reason he's still working with the second team. Like I said, Javelin Guidry is the next guy up. Bryce Hall, the corner the Jets drafted, just came off the COVID list, still recovering from the injury he suffered in college. That corner situation is absolutely decimated. Then you look at the receiver position, no Perryman, no Mims. Those are the Jets' top two outside wide receivers on a receiving class or a receiving group that we already thought was going to struggle and not be very good. You have someone named Josh Malone starting outside right now, man. Like, Chris Hogan was signed as like, okay, yeah, let's bring him here. Maybe a deep threat. Maybe he can do something. He's playing every snap now because the Jets have no one else. They were a snap away from George Campbell being this team's starting receiver. Have you ever heard of Jehu Chesson? Because he's the next guy up. Like, these guys are like, this team is in legitimate trouble at receiver. This team is in legitimate trouble at corner, and they need to get guys healthy, because if they don't get guys healthy, Josh Allen's going to throw for 600 on this team. Like, that's what's going to happen. And I have a trouble seeing the Jets move the ball, because I'll be honest, man, I've seen these practices. The offensive line looks legitimately better, but they're not going to give Sam Darnold 7 seconds to throw in the pocket. And the normal time that a quarterback has, 3.5 seconds at the most, these guys just aren't getting open in time. And eventually teams are going to say, you know what, we're going to pack the box. We're going to bracket Chris Herndon, and we're going to spy Jamison Crowder and ask someone else to beat us. And I don't think 32-year-old Chris Hogan, who's clearly lost a step and also coming off that injury, he's not going to do it. And obviously you can't expect that out of George Campbell or Josh Malone. So the Jets, it's tough right now, man, because I don't see anything they can do. I honestly don't. I don't see any, like, Des Bryant and Antonio Brown. That's not happening. Like, I don't think that's happening. Kevin White is a cool name. And obviously Ian Rappaport tweeted out the picture where he looks jacked as hell. And it's like, cool. But guess what? Jets are struggling with injuries, and Kevin White can't go to the grocery store without tweaking something. So, like, there's a problem there. There's a reason why he's unsigned despite the way he looks and his athletic ability. So there's no one out there that's coming to save the day. The Jets need to get healthy because of that, because no one is coming to save this team. No, there's no trade option. The Jets don't have the draft picks really to go get anyone. They're not trading for Juju. Steelers aren't letting Juju go this year. There's no one to really trade for. There's no one out there on the free agent market. They're stuck with what they have. And so they have to get these guys healthy. The issue is that I have no idea, and clearly the Jets have no idea when these guys are going to get healthy. It seems very unlikely Denzel Mims plays at any point early in this season. And obviously Breshad Perriman is a giant question mark when he's supposed to come back. So I don't want to say the Jets are like screwed or effed or whatever, but like if these guys don't get healthy, they are screwed, because there's no way they're beating the 49ers. There's no way they're beating the Bills with this current roster right now. They're just not.
Yeah, Perryman was like the bright light of the first couple of practices here with this team. I thought it was telling yesterday, just kind of following along with the workout on your Twitter feed. And at one point, I think it was David Fales playing well against Jets number one secondaries. I mean, that says all. We did an entire segment last week on the fact that if David Fales has to play football this season, the Jets are completely hosed. And then on Sunday, David Fales looks pretty good against this top flight current Jets secondary because of the injuries. It's just, it's bad on both sides.
Dude, and that's it. That's it. Like I remember saying, I was like, oh, like David Fales, and like in my head, like I can't remember if I revised or whatever, but I had to tweet basically saying is like David Fales and Braxton Berrios are torching the Jets starting secondary right now as like this is a freaking problem. But then I sat there and I was like, wait a minute. This isn't the Jets starting secondary. Yes, right now, this is the secondary the Jets have working with their first team, but it's not the Jets starting secondary. The Jets starting secondary was supposed to be Marcus May at safety, Bradley McDougald at safety, Ashton Davis casually rotating in. They were supposed to be Bless Austin, Quincy Wilson, or Arthur Mollett out at one corner. Bless Austin's clearly solidified himself as the number 2 corner throughout camp. So it was going to be Bless Austin at corner, Pierre Desir at corner, Bryant Poole at corner. The Jets starting secondary yesterday that Fales and Braxton Berrios were tearing apart, it had Bradley McDougald out there. Yeah, great. Bennett Jackson was the other safety. Bennett Jackson began in camp as their third team safety, but because Matthias Fairley's out and because Marcus May was sitting out of practice with a calf injury, which I know the Jets say they're not concerned, take that with a grain of salt with the way this camp's going. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got to have his calf removed with the way that this camp's going for the Jets. But they had Bennett Jackson as one safety, Bradley McDougald as one safety. They had Arthur Mollett at corner, or Arthur Mollett in the nickel. They had Nate Harrison outside, and they had Bless Austin outside. So 2 of the 5 players that are supposed to be the Jets starting secondary are who the Jets had at the starting secondary. They're missing their number 1 corner. They're missing their number 3 corner. They're missing their top safety. And like the guys that they're trotting out there, if Arthur Mollett has to start in the slot, or Arthur Mollett has to start a game, he can't cover Braxton Berrios. What the hell is going to happen when Stephon Diggs shows up? And from what I've heard, Stephon Diggs is having a hell of a camp out in Buffalo, and Josh Allen looks good, and the Bills look like they're roaring and raring to go. The Jets, again, man, I said they need to get healthy, because like Superman's not walking through the door. Like no one's coming through the door that's going to save this team. They need to get their guys healthy, and the amount of injuries that just keep piling up, I don't know. I don't know, because it's getting bad. Like, it is absolutely time to sound the alarms. Like, it's always been like, oh, wait it, sound it. Maybe they'll get back. They'll get healthy. We're 2 weeks from the opener right now. We're 2 weeks from the opener. Denzel Mims hasn't practiced. Pierre Desir hasn't practiced. They're not even running routes yet or covering air. They're literally jogging around the practice field. Breshad Perriman has a knee injury that was supposed to be a day, which has now kept him out 2 weeks. Like, Dante Moncrief is like in line to start right now, and the guy isn't even here yet. So it's bad. Oh, and by the way, the Jets kicking situation sucks too. So that's just the cherry on top.
You know who's going to be walking through that door to play receiver for the Jets if this doesn't get turned around? Jamar Chase next season, because they're going to have a high enough draft pick to take the LSU wideout who just opted out of the college football season and who's probably going to be a top 5 pick. Unfortunately, that's not what we want to hear as far as for Jets fans right now, though. They need something now and before that. But Marissa, something from the listeners?
Well, someone who's available now that I feel like talked about forever, Mr. Logan Ryan. So the YouTube chat wants to know, Connor, what's the latest?
It's well, the guy's a safety now. So right. Logan Ryan is no longer a corner. That's official. Right. He is now a safety, which makes sense because as a corner, he's had last year was his first year having interceptions since 2016. He also let up like 7 touchdowns last season. The Jets don't need a safety. If Marcus May suffered a season-ending injury yesterday to that calf and it's not serious and it wasn't, the way that Gase described Marcus May's injury was the same way as Le'Veon Bell's hamstrings that weren't actually an issue. Was that he said they were tight. But he said, my calf's a little tight, but I'm fine. I can go back out there. And Gase was like, you're out of your goddamn mind. If you think like after everything we've dealt with in training camp right now, we're going to risk you going out there and tweaking something. So they basically said, no, sit down. You're fine. We don't need you in this one drive in scrimmage. We'll put Bennett out there. We need you healthy for the regular season. If that injury was more serious, then I could see maybe the Jets going and getting Logan Ryan because he'd be a good veteran presence back there, a player that they could do safety. But where do they need him? Like, he's not going to start over Bradley McDougald. There's a reason they traded for him. Like, Bradley McDougald wasn't oh yeah, I want that guy too. Like, throw in piece for that Jamal Adams trade. Like, the Jets were targeting Bradley McDougald. Like, they wanted Bradley McDougald if they were giving up Jamal Adams. So there's a reason he's starting. You're obviously not taking Marcus May off the field, and Ashton Davis is having a hell of a training camp, so you want him to be your third safety. They don't need Logan Ryan. If Logan Ryan was a corner in the prime of his career, yeah, I would probably say, you know what? Go out there and get him because you don't know when Pierre Desir is going to be ready. You don't know if he comes back, he tweaks that hamstring again because Pierre Desir also dealt with hamstring issues in Indianapolis last year. So you don't know if this is a chronic thing, if this is starting to peak or be a problem. So if he was still a corner, now maybe it makes some sense. But if he's a safety and just wants to play safety, the Jets don't need him because they have that hybrid position already with Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis is probably certainly a higher ceiling, and depending on how this year goes, he might actually be a better player than Logan Ryan anyway. And you're not going to take Bradley McDougald or Marcus May off the field to get Logan Ryan on it. So I don't see where he fits.
So the Jets don't need Logan Ryan, but we could all use Fubo TV. So let's talk a little bit about that. They have a family plan going on right now. It allows you to watch 3 different things at the same time. So 3 members of your family can be on 3 separate screens watching 3 different things. Their standard base plan, 2 screens at once. And right now you can get 15% off your first month. Also, if you can't get to that show live, 30 hours of DVR in the cloud on Fubo TV. You also get your local channels, so you won't miss the local sports action on your local networks. These are tough times for a lot of people, but $50 a month, very affordable, much more affordable than cable right now. NBC Sports also included on the national feed. With the NFL season around the corner, Fubo.tv will not disappoint. Stay updated on your favorite teams as well as local broadcast news. So go to FuboTV.com/athletic today and get 15% off your first month. You won't regret it. That's FuboTV.com/athletic. Start your first month today. All right, we've talked a lot about the secondary, a lot about the wide receivers. Both those group obviously have a big impact on Sam Darnold, what he's doing here as he tries to progress and become a top-flight quarterback in the NFL. And that's a progression, Connor, that so far, and you can blame a lot of things, including the lack of weapons to get the ball to, so far we haven't seen so far in this training camp. It's been a lot of dink and dunk, and it's just frustrating to see a quarterback that you want to see take that stride having to resort to that type of offense because of the weapons right now.
Yeah, and it's tough, man, because that's like the question I get asked all the time by Jet fans, whether it's here, whether it's like in a mailbag, whether it's like on the street, like it doesn't matter. Like everyone always wants to know. And even friends, like friends of mine that obviously know I cover the Jets. They'll ask, I go, how's Sam looking? Like whatever. Like we did a fantasy football draft the other day, and one of my friends is a Jets fan. He's like, oh, how's Sam looking? How's Sam looking? Like he's a big year. He's going to have a big year. And the thing that I keep telling him, and honestly, I was talking about with some of the other reporters too at practice the other day, is that like Sam hasn't had a bad training camp by any stretch of the imagination. He just hasn't really done anything to make, I think, anyone say like this dude's gonna blow up 2020. Like there's like what Gase has said about how he's processing things quicker, he's doing things quicker, he's more comfortable. Like, yeah, you can see that. Like, I think you can tell he's definitely processing things quicker. You can tell that he's definitely more comfortable, like where he's taking more control of the offense, where he's like, talking a little bit of fake trash to the defense, where he's He's speaking up in front of his teammates. Like, you can tell he's definitely more comfortable. You can tell when he's going through his reads that he's processing everything quicker. But he hasn't really had like a great camp. And I don't know if he's really had a good camp either. I think he's been okay. I think he's been above average. I think he's been fine. But I don't think he's really done anything to make me be like, oh, there you go. And like a couple examples of it would be Sunday, like the practice on Sunday. There was a play where in the drive the field drill where the Jets eventually scored against the second team defense, where Darnold like faked the handoff to a play action boot across his body. So, he's a right-handed quarterback, so he was rolling out left. He had to adjust his feet. It was a challenging throw, but he had to adjust his feet and hit Trevon Wesco, who had gotten to the second level of the defense. No one really covered him because he kind of snuck around from the other side. He was wide open in the middle of the field for what would have been like a 15-yard gain, and he probably could have picked up another 10 yards, 15 yards after that to have a 25, 30-yard catch. Darnold like kind of adjusted his body. Again, it was not an easy throw. Adjusted his body and threw one to him, and the ball went behind Wesco as he was moving it over his head for an incompletion. A tough throw, but if a guy's having a stellar camp, that's the throw you make to say like, man, he's doing that every single day. He's about to take off. There was a play in the red zone before he threw the touchdown to Chris Hogan where it was a cool little like rub route with Jamison Crowder, which the Jets have run before. It reminded me of the touchdown that he threw to Crowder in the first Dolphins game that the Jets eventually lost, but where Crowder kind of came around the left side and was wide open in the corner of the end zone. It's a timing route because it's kind of like a pick play where then Crowder comes around the side, but Crowder's open in the back corner of the end zone. Darnold put it over his head, and it wasn't close. He missed him by like 2 yards. That's a throw where that one was an easier throw. If he's having a great camp, he makes that. There was a play in the practice before the scrimmage where Chris Herndon was marched up on Marcus May again in a red zone drill. Herndon split wide as a wide receiver, went deep, and Darnold threw it over his head on 4th down out of bounds. And it's like, he makes some good throws. The turnovers are down. That's a positive. When Perryman was in there, he made a couple throws to Perryman where it was like, wow. But since these guys have gone down, and again, I attribute a lot of these non-impressive practices, like you said, Tim, to the weapons around him. It's because I don't know. It's like I said, he's not doing anything through camp right now to make me say or make me think this guy's going to have a massive 2020 season, or this guy's going to have a huge year, or he's ready to be a franchise quarterback. I feel very similar about him right now as I have the last 2 years, where you see some good, then you see some bad, and you basically say, I don't know if he's going to be the reason the Jets win a Super Bowl, or if he's just a quarterback that's going to be pretty good throughout the NFL, have some good moments, have some bad moments. And if you surround him with a shit ton of talent, then maybe he can play well and lead you to a Super Bowl. I don't really know that about him. And I think the reason why we don't know that about him is the Jets, since they've had Sam Darnold on their roster, have done a very poor job. And our Bills writer is the one who coined this phrase, and I think it's so perfect. But the Jets have done a very poor job of eliminating variables. So if you look at the Buffalo Bills roster right now, Tim, and you look at Josh Allen, like Sam Darnold right now, is a quarterback that you can say, I don't really know what he is. And what I mean by that is he's clearly not a bust. He's clearly not a bad player, but you don't know if he's more Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, or is he more Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford? Like, you don't know. And probably Matt Stafford. Like, you don't know if he's more there or if he's more here. What the Bills have done, though, is they've positioned themselves in 2020 to say, we know exactly what Josh Allen's going to be after this season, because they have given him a tremendous receiving core with tremendous might be a little strong, but a very good receiving core in John Brown, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is a legitimate number one. John Brown's a good guy to take the top off the defense, a good number two. Cole Beasley's a very good slot wideout. They also have a decent tight end whose name is escaping me. They've built him a pretty good offensive line. Where are they? The Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017, the Patriots at times? No, but they're a good offensive line. They're certainly above average. They're probably top 10 offensive lines in the NFL. They've given him a solid running back rotation with Singletary and the rookie they just drafted and all that stuff. So it's now like on Josh Allen. Like Brandon Beane has basically said, like, here is your roster that has good offensive line, good receivers, good tight end, and good coach. It's up to you to sink or swim now. We're going to know after this year what kind of quarterback you are and what we got to do to win a Super Bowl. You can't say that about Darnold because his first 2 years, the offensive line was atrocious. The Jets offensive line is okay this year, probably slightly above average. If everyone's healthy and things stride and go forward, they're pretty good. But you got coaching question marks with Adam Gase right now. You don't really know what kind of a coach Adam Gase is. The receiving unit was going to be questionable anyway, and now they're down Perryman and Mims, and even more than that, Lawrence Cager is now out, and everyone is getting hurt. Jeff Smith was a starting receiver for this team. He's now out. Like, and in fact, Jeff Smith was even a starter. I mean, that guy's going to struggle to make almost 31 other NFL teams. So I just stuttered like crazy. That was weird. All of the issues that are still around Darnold that are not with some of these other guys, they're all reasons why you can't get a true legitimate evaluation of him. If you took Sam Darnold, you put him in the Bills offense right now, I guarantee you after 2020, we're going to know what kind of quarterback he is. We're going to know because all of the variables are gone. Right now, you can blame Adam Gase's poor play calling at times for a reason why Sam Darnold doesn't take off this year. You can blame the fact that he does not have any kind of legitimate number one receiver on the roster, and even the receivers he has right now are very banged up. You can make the argument that this is the first year the offensive line is together and they're still kind of piecing things together. You can make all of these excuses, and all that's doing is neutering the evaluation that you could potentially have on Darnold. And it's a big problem for the Jets. It's one of the biggest issues that Mike Maccagnan had during his tenure here as Jets GM. And unfortunately, his ineptitude those final 2 years is a big reason why the Jets are in this situation right now, where I don't think Sam Darnold's having a very great training camp. He doesn't look bad, but I don't think he's having a great training camp. And I can't tell you if that's because of Sam Darnold or if that's because of all those pieces around him.
Yeah, and you mentioned Maccagnan, and it goes back to that, right? Because we've said lots of good things about Joe Douglas on this podcast and the way he's building this team, but it takes time to build a complete roster from nothing. And they've made the decision that they weren't going to do weapons first, right? They're get the offensive line fixed first. And they did attempt to get Mims, and obviously that hasn't panned out so far because of the injury. But it's just a frustrating spot when you take the quarterback. Maybe when the Jets did, when you have so much else to kind of fix, it's going to take a while before you learn what you have in that quarterback, as opposed to getting together an offensive line and other pieces and then bringing in your quarterback. But I mean, you got to get them when you can. And they were in that spot high in the draft, and they got Darnold, the guy they liked. And now we're just going to have to continue, I think, to wait and see if he's the guy. I did want to ask you about, you mentioned Gase and, you know, the decision-making as far as play calling. I wanted to bring up the Bell-Gase feud. I'm going to put that in quotes, feud from last week on Wednesday when Gase said that Bell had kind of tweaked something, and so they held him out of practice. And then Bell went on Twitter and kind of ranted, and then they cleared it up supposedly in a meeting where Gase said, you know, he thought that they could have had that conversation instead of going to social media. All that said, it just goes back to the same thing when you think about Adams and all these different players. Is it possible that Adam Gase thinks that he has a certain relationship with players, Connor? He actually doesn't have that relationship with these players.
That's a hell of a question. That's a hell of a question. And I think that you could be onto it. You could absolutely be onto it. I think there could be a point where Gase maybe doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said is it. I think that very well could be it, because sometimes, I mean, you have to do a lot of self-evaluating sometimes, and that's in any point in life. I mean, I'm not trying to preach to anyone here, but I mean, that's anything in life. Sometimes your view or outlook on yourself is not what somebody else's outlook of you is. I mean, you kind of, it's a self-awareness thing, and that could be very well the case. Now, if this was happening with say like Chris Herndon, or this was happening with, say, Sam Darnold, or this was happening with Marcus May, or happening with Jordan Jenkins, or happening with Connor McGovern, who just got here, or happening with some of these other people, I would probably be more worried about that.
Yeah.
I think that because this was Le'Veon Bell, I think that there is probably a little bit to that, because the entire thing, I saw this from the outside happening, and I was like, this is much ado about nothing, and even when Gase talked to us, he kind of said very clearly and very explicitly, like, if this is a game, Bell probably doesn't come out. But what he said is he basically comes out and he did say, he goes, look, somebody told me he had tight hamstrings. I'm not risking that. Very similar to what happened with Marcus May. Marcus May had a little calf issue. He's not risking it. With all the issues the Jets have right now, he's not trying to lose his best player, so he took him out. Now, what normally happens in a normal situation is Bell probably goes back to the locker room. He's pissed, or he talks to Gase after practice and he's pissed. And Gase is like, look, man, no problem. We just don't want to risk it. He goes, I heard it was a little tight. I just don't want to risk it getting any worse. So we're going to like calm this down. It's all going to be fine. With the way that training camp works, and this is how it's always, this isn't a Gase thing. This happened with Todd Bowles and Rex Ryan and all that stuff. The coach talks to us, the media, before he talks to, like, he addresses the whole team after practice, but then he goes right and does media with us. And then he goes back to his office and then they have team meetings and everything like that. So Gase talked to us before he could talk to Bell, which is why he told us what he did. Bell clearly went on Twitter, saw probably one person tweet that Gase says Bell had hamstring tightness, and not the full quote of, right, so I was being extremely precautionary. He would have stayed in, like, he had hamstring tightness. He's fine. He says, F that, I don't have hamstring tightness. And then he goes on the Twitter tweet storm, which I think shows a little bit of a lack of maturity for Bell to do that. 100%. I mean, he should have just gone to the coach and be like, dude, why'd you take me out? Gase says, here's why I took you out. And then all of a sudden it's water and there's no problem. There's no problem at all. It was Bell going on this tweet storm, whatever. Personally, I think the bigger problem at Jets camp right now is that Le'Veon Bell has talked a hell of a game, man. He's talked about how he's going to have the best year of his career, best shape of his life, all that stuff. I agree the dude is shredded and looks like he's in great shape. He's not the best back at Jets camp right now, like in terms of productivity. Like as far as talent, yeah, probably the most talented running back at Jets camp. Productivity is not it. You know, it's I think what he needs to realize quickly is that the Jets are not the Pittsburgh Steelers of a couple years ago, man. Like this is not, Ben Roethlisberger's not under center. Antonio Brown's not split wide. That offensive line the Jets have is definitely improved, but it's not the Steelers' offensive line. So when Bell would get these handoffs before, and when he was with the Steelers, he had the luxury of dancing and waiting for that perfect hole because Antonio Brown was split wide. So he was never seeing a loaded box because you had to keep a safety over Antonio Brown, or Antonio Brown was going to beat you like crazy. And even if you did keep a safety over, Antonio Brown was the best wide receiver in the NFL for a few years before he went crazy. So he was catching like 120 balls a season. Like the guy was ridiculous. So he had the luxury of sitting by there, aside from the fact the line was going to open holes anyway, finding the perfect one and going. The Jets and any defense that faces the Jets defense in practice and any defense that faces the Jets in the regular season is not going to be fearful of Josh Malone split wide. They're really not going to be fearful of Breshad Perriman or Denzel Mims either. So they're going to be loading the box because their priority is going to be stopping Le'Veon Bell. The Jets offensive line's improved. It's still not great. So when he gets to the line and starts dancing and pitter-pattering, that's a problem because all it's giving is the defense more time to close in on him and tackle him for no gain, 2-yard gain, something like that. He's just constantly dancing. I've seen countless times also where his vision is a little question mark or a little questionable, where there's a clear hole because our vision now in practice is sometimes behind the line. We can see like the wide open cutback lane to the left, and he's still just dancing in the middle and then gets tackled for no loss. With Frank Gore, he's a no bullshit runner. So with Frank Gore, he gets the ball, finds the first crease, and gets through it. A couple times that's resulted in 10, 15-yard runs for him, but almost every time it's at least 3, it's at least 4, it's sometimes 5. So he's being just get the ball, go downhill, get the ball, go downhill, get the ball, go downhill. When P. Ryan has come in, he's been doing the same thing as Gore, get the ball, get through the line, get to the next level. P. Ryan is at a point in his life where he's obviously a little bit more athletic than Frank Gore, who's 37, 38, 39, 75, however old he is. P. Ryan is at a point in his career where he's now going to take the 3, 4, 5 Gore runs and turn them into 5, 6, 7, 8-yard runs just because he's younger and more elusive and stuff. But they're doing the no BS run style of get the ball, get yardage, get the ball, get yardage, while Bell is still stuck in his like old Steeler ways where he's dancing around and it's not working. That's the biggest issue for Bell. And I can tell you right now, Gase is not just going to force feed Bell the ball because he's Le'Veon Bell. He's going to ride the hot hand when the regular season happens. So if Bell is getting 10 carries early in the game and he's doing that dancing thing and getting tackled behind the line, he's got 10 carries for 30 yards or 10 carries for 35 yards and 10 of them came on one play. Frank Gore comes in, he's got 5 carries for 20. Frank Gore is going to keep getting the ball because that's what they're going to do. They're going to ride the hot hand because there was times last year where the Jets ran Bell into the ground just for the sake of running Bell, and it didn't work. So that's the bigger issue that I think Bell needs to focus on is the fact that he's got to look in the mirror and realize he is not the most productive pack at Jets camp right now. And while he sat because of his hamstrings, you could have made the argument that Bell should have been sitting anyway because Frank Gore came in and the offense started moving. LaMichael P. Ryan came in and he started breaking off runs left, right, and sideways. So I think that's that's the bigger thing from camp so far.
Perriman's a popular name in the chat right now. Marissa, there's questions about him, right?
Yeah, Andrew wants to know any updates on Perriman.
Of course, he left the game with the ankle injury.
Yeah, he did. It didn't look good. I mean, as soon as we were all watching the play in the press box, and as soon as he bent backwards, every single one of them all of us in the media room went, oh boy. Because he was like running forward. Someone fell. He kind of got caught and then he bent backwards. And you could tell we didn't have the, obviously in a game, you have the big visual of like right up on his ankle. You're like, oh God, that looks ugly. You don't know, limped off, carted back. I would be surprised if you see Perriman back within the next couple of weeks. I mean, it didn't look good. I don't want to guess, but like the high ankle sprain might be a possibility in there. They're getting an MRI to make sure there's no ligament damage or anything like that. But we have nothing new to update on that yet. Adam Gase is supposed to talk to the media again on Tuesday when they have practice. So that's when we'll get a full update. Because that was the same thing with Jeff Smith, where he got hurt. Gase, I don't have an update. He's getting the MRI. We talked to Gase the next day, and he said he's going to be out a few weeks because of whatever the MRI showed. So that's kind of what we're all waiting on right now is an MRI, and then obviously to talk to Gase about just how severe that is.
All right, before we take another break, one more thing. Yannick Ngakoue goes to the Vikings on over the weekend. A trade, second rounder in 2021, fifth rounder in 2022, which I think could become up to a third rounder depending on production and all that sort of things. But Connor, the big question is, I guess for a lot of Jets fans, this is a team that needs a pass rush. Why weren't the Jets in on Ngakoue?
And he took a pay cut.
Yeah, that was the big thing.
Right, in order for the Jets done that to join the Jets, though. Let's be honest, right? I mean,
it's true.
Be on a winner.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, it had to be the right situation. The Jets were never going to give him the $17 million. It would have had to be, I think, a third round pick. Maybe they would have given up, or maybe a 3 and a 5. Like they would have had to go lower with draft compensation. The Jets, because again, you see what the issue is with the Jets roster. They're not in a position where they can start packaging a bunch of their picks to go get one player. Like they're not one player away. Like Yannick would have made the Jets better. But they are not in a position where they can just be putting all their picks together and sending them and saying, okay, we're going to go get one player. There was the issue, obviously, with, like I said, so it was the issue where I don't think the Jets had the draft compensation to go trade him. I don't think that Yannick was going to be taking a pay cut to go play for the Jets, which is what the Jets would have wanted anyway. He's not really a Gregg Williams type player. Like he's not really that kind of like a run stuffer and a pass rusher, do it all, high energy guy. Like he's got some personality flaws as well. There's the concern the Jets had as well, which is that you're going to have to be paying a lot of money to a guy that hasn't necessarily shown he can be the premier pass rusher. Like when you look at his best seasons, Yannick's, he had Calais Campbell next to him. He had Dante Fowler on the other side. I mean, there were a lot of even last year, Josh Allen on the Jaguars is a legitimate pass rusher. Like there's a lot of guys that are taking the attention off him. He's not necessarily seeing that many double teams, where if he comes to the Jets, he's going to get double teamed on every snap. So that's an issue there. And I think the biggest thing more so with that is that at this point, you're worried about him being a rental because the Jets could not trade for Yannick and then extend him right now. So if they weren't past the trade or the contract extension point, I think that then it's more likely an option because the Jets can get him, bring him in here, give him the long-term contract extension. You know, you have Yannick for the next 4 or 5 years. You also know you have a pass rusher, so you don't have to worry about using a draft pick on one of the pass rushers. The problem is that you're past the point where you can extend him. So the Jets would have had to, one, trade for him, pay him whatever they have to pay him on the renegotiated salary. Then if they can't agree to a long-term contract extension, tag him again, franchise tag him again, which is going to be $17-18 million next year in a cap world where the Jets are going to have to be pretty frugal with their money because of the fact that it could be just a team cap of $175 million. So you don't want to basically take 20 of that and give it to one player. And the last part of it is that I really, aside from him being a 1-year rental or potentially 1-year rental where you trade him, you give him this 1-year money, and then all of a sudden he leaves in free agency. It's the fact that I don't think the Jets are that much better of a team or that closer to the playoffs with the Yannick on their roster than without. I mean, are they a better team? Yeah, they'd have a pass rusher when they don't necessarily always have a pass rusher, but they're not like 5 wins better with him than without. So I just don't think it was the right time. It wasn't the right situation. If he's there in free agency, like say the Vikings don't bring him back, the Jets could pursue him then. I think that would make a lot more sense, but trading him to risk only having him for 1 year, I don't think that was the right move for the Jets this year. If the Jets were a team that was looking for a piece that could get him to the Super Bowl, yeah, I get it. Go get him, bring him in here. Even if it's for 1 year, he could potentially help you get to a Super Bowl. But for a team that might make a run at the playoffs, it doesn't make that much sense to me.
All right, we'll get to more of our YouTube questions in a second, but first, Connor's favorite ad read, DraftKings.
There we go.
It's everyone's favorite time of year, and it's right around the corner. That's right, football is back. And to celebrate football's 101st year, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook, is putting new users in the center of the action with a free $100 bet when they place a bet on Kansas City versus Houston Thursday night football game.
Oh, you were going so well.
Sorry. Okay, pick back up. This touchdown of a deal is only available for 100. Oh my gosh. This touchdown of a deal is only available for 101 hours. So get in all of the action now. You heard us right. DraftKings is giving all new users a free bet of $101 once they sign up and place a bet of $10 or more on the Kansas City versus Houston game. If you're new to DraftKings Sportsbook, head to the app now to check out all of the great promotions and odd boosts they're offering. DraftKings Sportsbook is safe, secure, and reliable, located right here in the United States, so it's easy to deposit, withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code QUICK to get a free $101 bet to use once you place a bet on the first football game of the season. That's a promo code QUICK to get a free $101 bet for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey only. Other terms and conditions and restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That 101 really threw me off.
101 Dalmatians. That's what I think down here, 101. I was thinking that my DraftKings stock ain't doing too great today. I have to do the Connor day trader soon. I mean, the whole stock market is in ugly shape right now, though. Today is not a great start to the week. We're hope for a little bit of a bounce back. Boeing's down, DraftKings down, Royals still looking pretty good. United's down, Zynga's down. Oof.
And that was your Connor's.
And crushed so much for the Yacht Club. Yacht Club 2022. It's not coming in 2021. I'll tell you that. That one's looking ugly.
Check out the stock on Manscaped because fantasy football draft season is upon us. Due to quarantine, it's very possible that you might have Zeke's haircut in your pants. That's why our partners at Manscaped have partnered with us to make sure you don't gamble on shaving the same way you gamble on football. When it comes to men's hygiene, Manscaped is as good and safe as Christian McCaffrey in a PPR league. The Lawnmower 3.0 is the best hygiene tool for the modern man. Because of their ceramic blade and skin-safe technology, your nicks and snags will be reduced. This is the perfect protection needed for your franchise quarterback. The Lawnmower 3.0 is also waterproof, has an LED light on it. It's a game changer, and they just released Shears 2.0 Nail Kit, which is the perfect add-on to their Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer. Their Perfect Package 3.0 comes with the new and improved Lawnmower Performer Boxer Briefs and a travel bag for you to use when you are done quarantining, and some other liquid formulations like the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver. For a limited time, subscribers get not one, but two free gifts. The Shed Travel Bag, that's a $39 value, and the patented high-performance anti-chafing Manscaped Boxer Briefs. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TheAthletic20 at manscaped.com. Get 20% off free shipping with code TheAthletic.com. Go to manscaped.com and use that. Again, it's 20% off and free shipping. It's your time to boost your hygiene with the absolute besties with Manscaped.
You guys have your fantasy drafts, right? Weren't we texting about that earlier? You guys got your fantasy drafts coming up?
Let's get into that a little bit. We want to, and you had yours last night. So, and we mentioned, right, Christian McCaffrey was part of that wonderful Manscaped read. And I think he's top of your board, right?
Yeah, he would be. I mean, I've been in the same fantasy league for we actually looked it up last night. We're going on 9 years now, the group. I've been playing with one of my friends since middle school. But I mean, I think that this one that we've had with this kind of core group of us, give or take, like somebody might drop in, somebody might come. Like we just added one person this year. We've had the last 9 years, and the last 3 now we've made it, or 2 years ago we made it a keeper league. So it's been a little it's changed the dynamic of it. So I had Chris Godwin, who I picked up as a waiver wire addition 2 years ago, kept him last year, kept him again this year. So it kind of changes the draft board a little bit. One of my buddies had Christian McCaffrey his rookie year. So he's been keeping him. So McCaffrey was never on the board.
Patrick Mahomes for me, just.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Mahomes.
Not to brag or anything, but.
There you go. There you go. Our keeper, I'm trying to think who our keeper, if I remember correctly, I know Kelsey and Kittle were 2 keepers that somebody kept. Barkley and McCaffrey, my fiance, actually Bree, because we made it off of the league, like the old television show The League, which was great for a few seasons. When we created it 9 years ago, we were all like, oh, we need a Jenny in our league. Like, who's going to be our Jenny? So Bree and I were dating at the time. We're like, let's make Bree the Jenny. And she's been like, Bree kicks my ass every year. She's super into it. Like she'll have her draft board. She's got her magazines because she wants to beat us all. And she's always makes the playoffs. She's finished second place a couple of times. She doesn't have a win yet, but she's always in the playoffs, always usually coming out with money. She kept Alvin Kamara. Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes were both 2 keepers. And I kept Godwin, and then somebody kept Kareem Hunt late as like in like the 15th round value or something like that. So our draft was like a little finicky, but I think what everyone does a lot now is you just go running back heavy, and that makes a ton of sense because I've made the mistake before of looking at it, and like it kind of happened like me. So like when I was picking, I've had the 7th pick in the draft. The top running back that I had there was like Austin Eckler. And I was looking, I was like, all right, I can go with OBJ. I could go with a Julio. I could go with a Mike Thomas. I was like, but the drop off between those wide receivers and the wide receiver I can get in the 3rd round compared to the running back I can get right now, compared to the running back I'll get in the 2nd round, I was going to be screwed. So I went with running back with Eckler and Chris Carson, who were the top 2 guys. And then targeted my wide receivers with like Chris Godwin. I came away with Allen Robinson. Obviously Chris Godwin was my keeper. Allen Robinson I came around with as well. I didn't realize that dude had like 90 catches and 1,100 yards with Mitch Trubisky throwing him passes. So that I'm a little hesitant with that, but I love Nick Foles being back with Matt Nagy. So I think that there's a chance there that Allen Robinson blows up. And then I came away with Darren Waller as my other guy, and Deebo Samuel I got in the 9th round, who's hurt. But if he's actually comes back and is a little healthy, I'm excited about that one. And then in keeper leagues, like I highly recommend people get into keeper leagues. I just think they're more funny because they add another dynamic to it. I always go with like a ton of rookies that might blow up later on. So I grabbed like CeeDee Lamb, I grabbed Justin Jefferson, Hunter Renfrow I like a lot as well. And then the only Jet that I came away with was Breshad Perriman, who I usually don't like. When you cover an NFL team, I stay away from drafting players of the team that I cover. And the only reason is because you have an inflated opinion of them because you see them every single day. So like I could see Jamison Crowder catching 10 practices a day, but does that mean the Jets nickel corner just sucks? Or does it mean Jamison Crowder's having a good practice? Now, if people are that adamant on drafting Jets, the only 2 that I would actually consider taking before the 10th round are Chris Herndon and Jamison Crowder. I think Crowder's going to be a PPR nightmare for people. Like he's going to catch like 90 to 100 balls this year. And then Perryman, I just got so late that it was like, if that guy comes back and he's their number 1, take a chance on him, take a flyer. Who are you guys targeting though? Who you like? You guys have your draft. When do you pick?
Well, I just think it's interesting the way things have swung back and forth. You mentioned the running backs because there was, years ago when running backs, you had to get one of those top, you wanted to get one of those top 5 running backs who were going to just pile up 25, 30 points every week. You could just kind of count on it. And then, the philosophy in the NFL changed with running backs where everybody does the committee and all of that. And I feel like it went away from drafting running backs, and you would see more top receivers, your number 1 receiver, and a few quarterbacks kind of creeping into that 1st round a little more. But now it seems like we're kind of back to the running backs. You just need even more of them because of the way that it's set up. Marissa, what are you eyeing up?
Well, so this kind of goes with fantasy and also rosters on game day. Steven asked, can you guys explain the extra roster spots and practice squad players, how it's all working this year? So that comes in mind when you're drafting players in fantasy as well this year.
Honestly,
like, are you taking, how many quarterbacks, like that kind of thing?
Yeah. When I drafted, and I think my entire league did this, we just drafted it normally because what we kind of said to each other when we were talking, like I was talking to my father-in-law actually about it, and he said he's been in a fantasy league for 30 years with his like friends from home, and they actually called it like they said we're not doing a league this year. We're just going to do daily fantasy. So they're going to do their same group of friends and they're going to have a money pot and they're just going to do daily fantasy every week and try to win it that way. Cause they were like, we don't know what's like their concerns weren't regular season's not going to happen. Their concerns were what Marissa alluded to, which was like a ton of injuries. People get COVID suddenly, like you're down 3 quarterbacks. What are you going to do? Is there like do you put those guys on a special COVID list and then like like your fantasy draft so then you go sign somebody else and they don't count on the raw, like how would it work? They were like, there's so many obstacles. Let's just do daily fantasy for this year and go back to it. My league that I'm in, we said, just do it normal. And if shit hits the fan, we'll just make an adjustment on the fly. Like we'll go to a daily fantasy. Like we're just going to try. Cause it's so like, I don't know if all teams really know how it's going to do. I think we're supposed to talk to like Joe Douglas or Rex Hogan or somebody else in the Jets front office this week at some point, just to kind of give us the legitimate rundown on the background of, okay, these are the rules for the practice squad. This is the rule for this. This is the rule for the extra spots on the roster.
Well, can you explain that? Because Steven just clarified.
I actually can't yet.
Okay.
I can't. And the only reason I say I can't.
We know there's 16 guys in the practice squad this year.
Yes.
And
you can protect like alternating 3 or something.
4, but it changes each week. And I believe the other teams do not know who you are protecting on your practice squad each week. So you get to select 4 players you're protecting, and that can change each week. But it's not like other teams know these are your 4 that you're protecting.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, we were talking about in the media room 2 days ago, Sunday maybe? No, day before, Saturday. The Jets practice on Saturday. We were talking about in the media room and basically just said like, look, there are so many rules and there's so many like subsequent rules and so many like extra bullet points. We were like, can we just have somebody explain it? Like somebody within the Jets, and how you don't have to say like, oh, we're going to put Flacco on the IR because he's actually only in the IR for 3 weeks now. And this is why, but like, just explain to us the breakdown of this is kind of how you're going to start to see teams tackle this issue this year. And that's supposed to come this week. So
because I believe IR, you can have an unlimited number of players come off IR compared to.
Yes, you can now. Yeah. And they also don't have to stay on the 8 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah,
like
I think it's 3 weeks.
Like 3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are definitely all things we'll see this week as we see.
Right. And as we've seen in baseball, you'll have guys go on the IR and they won't tell you why.
Yep.
But we'll all kind of know why.
We'll figure it out.
That's just, the way it is.
Something with a respiratory
Some
injury.
teams more than others.
Right.
Well, you never knew why Patriots went on the injured list. So now everybody
will be even more.
In the same boat.
How are the questions doing? I just went on YouTube, the YouTube thing. It looks like we got a solid number of live viewers that have been popping in and out of this thing.
Yeah, a lot of good questions. You kind of mentioned this earlier, Connor, in passing. Kathleen wanted to know about the kicker situation.
Ain't good. It's not good, man.
She says that you're the only one saying that it hasn't been good.
I don't know who the hell's saying it. Look, it does look good. Like, I think people just have kind of said like, this sucks, I'm not going to talk about it. I don't think anyone said they look good, because Brett Maher was bad, which is why he got cut so early. Sam Ficken hasn't been any better. I mean, look, I've been at camps where like the kicking competition comes down to like, wow, these 2 guys look really good. I don't know who's going to be the pick. Like I remember with Ross Martin a couple years ago, where it was him and Catanzaro, and they both were like neck and neck, and they ended up going with Catanzaro because of the leg, or with Jason Myers, where like that guy looks like, you can tell when you have a good kicker, and you can tell where anytime a kicker lines up for a kick, you're holding your breath. I mean, we'll watch it on the sideline and be like, all right, 43-yarder, you think he makes it or you think he doesn't? And it's about 50-50. And it's not 50-50 like, oh, I got $10 on him missing it. It's like literally you just have no idea what's going to happen when Maher was kicking or when Ficken's kicking, and you don't know. So I don't know if Hauschka is the answer. He's the one that a lot of people kind of bring up. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it's going to be someone else that shakes free, another veteran. I don't really know. But if Ficken's the Jets kicker week 1, I don't know if he's their kicker by week 4. Like that's how sporadic these guys are. And even if you look at Ficken last year, he wasn't a good kicker. He was just, the Jets had so many damn problems between Catanzaro, Taylor Bertolette, who was the guy from the Vikings, Vedvik. When they had Vedvik, like they had so many damn problems that Ficken came in, and even though he wasn't good, his borderline competence was such a welcome change of pace. The Jets just rode it the entire year. But they're going to have, I don't think the Jets season-long kickers on the roster right now, because it hasn't, neither of the 2 guys look good. Meyer's now gone, but Ficken hasn't really looked all that much better.
So John wants to know, do you see any trades out there for Douglas? Any vet cuts after the deadline?
There might be vet cuts. I know Nelson Aguilar was somebody that I think I've heard as a possibility to be let go by the Raiders. That might be still an option for the Jets. I know that Joe Douglas loves Aguilar. I know anyone who followed him from the Eagles is going to be about, oh, he drops passes, blah, blah, blah. But when he was allowed to play the slot, he looked pretty good, and he has some ability to play outside too. So he's maybe somebody, but what's so difficult and so challenging right now is going to be finding those guys that are let go. And the reason why I say that's a problem in finding the guys that are let go is because normally you find those veterans or those young guys or those rookies or the undrafted free agents, you find them by watching preseason film, because you see that guy looks good, I'm going to go out and get him. That's how the Jets found Berrios. That's how the Jets find some of these other players. There's no preseason, and these other teams aren't giving you practice film to evaluate their rosters. So it's literally going to be guys that are cut and saying, well, I like this guy in college and I liked what I saw from him last year. Maybe he's an option. So I absolutely think the Jets will scour the initial waiver wire for receivers, but it's not going to be like recent years where you can say like, oh, they got this young guy who just got caught up in the numbers game, because you don't know how these guys are performing. Unless you're monitoring every beat writers and you see the same name popping up, you have no idea who looks good and who doesn't look good. It's going to be challenging. That's why we kind of said earlier in the show is that we don't know if that, like, I don't think there's no one walking in the door that's going to save the Jets at corner, and there's no one walking in the door that's going to save the Jets at receiver. They need to figure this out in-house and get their guys healthy, because I don't see any waiver wire additions that are really going to help this team too much.
Any other questions, Marissa, that are popping up?
A few questions about what went wrong with the Bellage trade.
He failed physical. That's all it was. He just has a hamstring issue. So now he reverts back to the doll. It's happened before. It was like, it's actually some of the crazier stories of the players who, like, they find heart issues or they find like legitimate medical problems on the physicals, and that reverts him, and suddenly like that can save a player's life. But this one, he's got a bum hamstring. So because of the bad hamstring, he won't pass a physical with the Jets. So you can't sign a player until he can pass a physical. So all this means is that he reverts back to the Dolphins roster. They can either release him or they can waive injure him. If they waive injure him, he goes to their injured reserve until that hamstring heals. Then they'll just release him then. At that point, I mean, look, I don't think it's impossible to think that Bellage won't be on the Jets roster at some point. It's just this way they're going to keep their draft pick, and they can't get him on the team right now because of that failed hamstring. So that's all that was, is that the Jets agreed to the trade. Bellage came to pass the physical, and when he went to go pass the physical, they found out he had a hurt hamstring, and so he couldn't pass the physical, so they can't execute the trade.
Yeah, long term, maybe it helps the Jets because they do keep the draft pick, which a lot of people said they probably should have just done from the get-go, right?
Yeah, exactly. They were pissed about that. I was like, dude, it's a 7th round pick. Like, how often do 7th round picks actually work out? Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a 7th rounder. Just, if you can get somebody that contributes for a 7th round pick, do the deal. Yeah,
and the 7th rounder is the guy that you would probably be willing to trade to sign as a free agent after the draft anyway. And you just want to make sure you get him. It's that kind of thing. So,
well, that's interesting with what we saw this morning with the Jaguars and Leonard Fournette. I mean, maybe that's just like they're going to release him, and so that they potentially get those offers. Because no, was it official yet? Actually, I think they might have tweeted it out. So
I think so. So here's the thing, and I saw this, and Marissa, you actually said, like, are we getting how many Jets and Fournette questions are we going to get today about, like, should the Jets go inquire him? Doug Marrone talked to the Jaguar media today, and he said pretty adamantly that the Jaguars tried to trade him. They wanted to trade him, and he said we couldn't get a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, or a 7th round pick offer. So that means they were shopping him. Like, they were abundantly shopping Leonard Fournette to try to get rid of him. When you couldn't get a 5th or a 6th or a 7th round pick for Leonard Fournette, and the Jets decided to give a 7th round pick for Bellage instead of giving that to the Jaguars for Fournette, when they have all of this cap room and it's really just a 1-year rental for Leonard Fournette, I think it kind of tells you what kind of a locker room presence Leonard Fournette is. I think it kind of tells you what kind of a player Leonard Fournette is. And I think it kind of tells you, I think it's an alarming sign when there are 31 other teams. Where Leonard Fournette had 1,600 all-purpose yards last year, 75 catches I think he had, or some absurd number of receptions, ran for over 1,000 yards. Like, Leonard Fournette he had 1,600 all-purpose yards last year. When no team is willing to offer up even a 6th or 7th round pick to get that is a big tell. And it's the same reason why everyone keeps asking, like, all the people that ask about Jadeveon Clowney, why haven't the Jets signed Jadeveon Clowney? Why haven't the Jets signed Jadeveon Clowney? They need him. Go sign him. 31 other teams have looked at this guy and said, we're good. We're not signing him right now. We're not signing him. That's a tell. So when no one wants to trade for Fournette, as no one wants to sign Clowney, I think it's a sign. Now, granted, now that he's free and you can get him for like $200,000, like a veteran minimum contract, because he's still going to get his money from the Jaguars. Maybe some team will go out there and get him. But I just think I've heard some things about Fournette the last couple of years that make the fact that he hasn't been traded not a surprise. Not a surprise.
All right. Good show. Great questions. Thanks for joining us on YouTube if you have, and thanks for joining us on the podcast as well. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a rating as well. 5 stars, we prefer, if you can do that. If you want to save on a subscription to The Athletic and you don't already have one, or you want to help out a friend to get a subscription to The Athletic, go to theathletic.com/the Cant Wait podcast. You can save 40% off a 1-year subscription, and check out all of our different podcasts. This week, we've launched the Athletic NFL show with Robert Mays. Definitely check out that one as well. We're so excited for what Robert's going to do here with that flagship podcast here at The Athletic. I'm sure at some point this season, Connor's going to be on that show as well, talking about the Jets and something that happens that we can't believe during the course of the season.
Come up.
So it's inevitable, maybe early. So check that out as well. If you don't follow Connor on Twitter yet, do it. Connor_J_Hughes. I'm at Tim M. McMaster, and Marissa the influencer is at Marissa_Morris. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Cant Wait podcast.